All right, guys, we are live, I hope. Let's get this thing running because YouTube always takes a while. All right, guys, so let me know in the chat whether you are seeing my screen, because in the last live I did, which was also my first live, I did a live and the playout, the recording came out with my face on top of the entire screen share I was doing. So hopefully you guys can see the screen share. I'm looking at the screen myself right now and I can see the screen. But if you're not seeing the screen, let me know in the chat. But I wanted to go over some urgent news for you guys, and that concerns Metamask. So if you use Metamask, and a lot of us use Metamask, then you might want to sit tight. But let's take a look at the markets right now. Everything is green, which is fantastic because we see that the Feds have actually increased rates to 25 basis points or like 0.25%. So I think that was already priced in with the market. So that is why we see green on everything. Bitcoin is up 4%. It is at 41,000 right now. I think once it goes up to 42, then it will be pretty safe. Because then, like I said in my previous videos and my previous lives, what was happening is that we were looking for Bitcoin. What was scary is that Bitcoin, for example, fell below 34 or 30. I don't think we're going to see that again. Well, we might see that. We might hit like, I don't know, 45K and then just drop back down again. We'll see. That is the problem with crypto. It's unexpected. Anything can happen. So everything's green. ETH is green. I really hope you guys got some ETH. It's still a pretty good price right now considering where ETH came from. Right now it's at 27,000. And remember, if we look at, where's the 52 week? If you look at the 52-week range, right, it's almost up to 5K. ETH is extremely undervalued. So whenever ETH goes back to, like 24, I have limit orders always set at 24 because here is where we have some support lines, right? Because if we draw a horizontal line here, this is where we're seeing some support around 35.50. They spend several days here. ETH spent several days there. So if it goes back to that level, might be good to snap some up. Another one that I really want to talk about, I haven't talked about in any of my videos, and I probably won't, is LooksRare. Because this was introduced to me at IM Academy. So if you haven't checked it out, be sure to check it out or schedule a call with me with the links below. But it's a relatively, really, really new token. I think it came out a couple months ago in this year, actually. And I was looking at this freaking yesterday, and I was thinking I didn't take action, which we all live and learn. But I was looking at this yesterday. Today's March 16th. So I was looking at it yesterday and it was like at 90 cents, like around here, 95 cents. And boom, it just shot all the way up. So make sure to look into LooksRare. What it is because OpenSea has been having so much trouble, with scams and hacks and stuff. LooksRare is the alternative to that. And when you buy the token, you actually are able to stake the token and earn WETH, which is wrapped ETH. Basically, you're earning ETH as a staking reward, and you can't go wrong with ETH. But let's go to the topic of today. Let's talk about Metamask. So, all right, Metamask, if you don't know, and I also found this out recently from our mentors at IM Academy, their parent company is Consensys, right? So big Ethereum company, centralized. And they also are looking for, I think they closed a Series D round today. So it values the company at $7 billion. And some of the new investors were Metamask, SoftBank, Microsoft. Microsoft is finally getting in. And that's interesting to know, right? Because if you thought that Metamask was decentralized, like I did, it's not that decentralized anymore. So if you read through this article, and I'll leave the links to what I'm going to show you today in the comments below so you can look at it. So basically, Consensys is actually just an arm. What it was called before Consensys was Consensys Mesh. That was the original company, right? And then they also have this Consensys Software Incorporated, CSI. They also have one called CAG, which stands for Consensys something. They have all these like sidearm companies, which is iffy when people make kind of like offshoots like that for me, actually. That's how I see it. So Consensys Mesh, before Consensys Software Incorporated was a thing, actually owned Metamask and Infura. And Infura is that one service that pretty much all blockchain developers use right now. Well, there's Infura and Alchemy. I've used both. Alchemy is much better, in my opinion, but a lot of people still use Infura, right? So there comes from a lot of Consensys shareholders that they were actually screwed over because Joseph Lubin, who's actually also one of the Ethereum co-founders, they are saying that they shifted assets from Mesh to the new company, Consensys Software Incorporated, as part of the transaction. And the biggest shift of the assets that they're talking about is literally Metamask and Infura. How many people use Metamask and Infura? A lot. So the entity assets and the intellectual property, the IP, were valued at $46.6 million as of June 2020. So they're going through like a lawsuit, a class action lawsuit right now. So again, the assets in question are Metamask and Infura, as well as Truffle. A lot of people use Truffle to develop dApps. And Consensys booked 9 figures in revenue in 2021. And Metamask alone has over 30 million, that's a lot of people, of monthly active users, up 42% from 4 months ago. So when you're a shareholder of Consensys and you didn't know that they actually did this, yeah, you'll be pissed off. So they're also looking at, it looks like Infura now has 43,000 developers using the product, up from 350,000. And it supports over $1 trillion in annualized on-chain ETH transaction volume. So basically all that is to say that, Metamask and Infura is growing in use, and they just basically slid that out from the original company that shareholders had a part of into this new company that nobody knew about. That's not the catch. The catch is that during this transaction, JPMorgan also took a stake in that. So here this article says that does JPMorgan own Metamask? So we're going to take a look at this whole article. So basically, if we go to the bottom here, it says that JPMorgan Chase, they actually took a 10% stake in CSI, which is the company that has the assets, Metamask and Infura, right? And this is where that lawsuit is coming from, right? Because the minority shareholders were arguing that, yeah, Metamask and Infura was sold to Consensys or Consensys Software Incorporated. JPMorgan acquired an influential stake. They acquired 10% of the new entity, and they also gave $39 million loan to the Consensys chief and Ethereum billionaire Joseph Lubin. And this deal was called Project North Star. And now we know that a centralized banking service, JPMorgan, now owns some lucrative IP, that is Metamask and Infura. So turns out, Wall Street is now trying to take hold of crypto. So if any people are telling you, yeah, crypto is not going to last, it's just a fad. Yeah, tell that to the banks who went ahead and slid right into MetaMask to try to control it. Tell that to JP Morgan, who's calling just a couple months ago, couple of years, time just flies by, kind of merges together. They were saying that Bitcoin is not going to last, and now they're becoming more and more influenced into saying all right, crypto, Mana, Decentraland, the metaverse, yeah, they are taking a heavy investment. They're getting in early, not as early as us who's already been invested in crypto since years ago, right? But they're getting in early compared to the majority of the crypto adoption. So that's what we're looking at. Let's take a look at this. Another key piece that I want to talk about is we all know that Russia has invaded Ukraine. And isn't it funny that Metamask Infura has blocked certain areas amid crypto sanctions. So basically, Metamask and Infura, they went on to restrict access to users in certain areas amid a industry-wide focus on the risk cryptocurrencies poses for evading international sanctions, because basically the entire world have sanctioned Russia and their banking system is in shambles. And a lot of people are turning to crypto, right? Because no sanctions can sanction cryptos. But MetaMask and Infura turn them off. So there's been some reports, I think, in Venezuela saying that users were reporting service interruptions. CoinDesk cannot independently confirm this. And they say here that, and this was a tweet, I believe, that in changing some configurations as a result of the new sanctions directives from the United States and other jurisdictions, we mistakenly configured the settings more broadly than they need to be. This was our oversight, and we are grateful that it has pointed out to us. Once we determined what happened, we were able to fix the problem and service has been restored. How nice can they wrap that up with a little bow and a gift card, right? Because they're basically saying, yeah, this is no big deal. Well, it is a big deal. You're supposedly supposed to be decentralized. But what we see is that the US governments are saying that you have to change your configurations. You have to work with our sanctions to ensure that certain people, maybe Russia, can't get around our sanctions. We have to make them suffer. So, goes on to say that MetaMask is not decentralized as we thought. It is pretty centralized. So I just wanted to go through that with you guys. If you want to get around that, one solution that we found over at IM that was presented was the Pocket Network, which if you add this to your MetaMask and go through that, you'll actually have your requests routed through nodes, because normally they're routed through Infura, I believe, but with this, you're actually having the request when you do a swap or something, it's getting routed through the nodes that this service connects to. So I haven't really taken a look at this on how it worked. So I'll probably be doing that over the weekend. I've been just so incredibly busy restudying my insurance license for some reason. But make sure to look at this, look at how it works, because it's probably better for you to protect yourself and do the research rather than waiting for my video that may or may not come, because I'm employed by the YouTube algorithm. That's how it is. But this MetaMask stuff was just so juicy that I was like, oh man, people gotta know about this. But other than that, let's take a look at Crypto Quant. So what we're looking at is the reserves. This is the chart of the reserves. And you can see here that the reserves have been going down. And let me why does this look so weird, this graph? You can see from this graph right now that the blue line is was the Bitcoin reserves on exchanges, and we're just seeing fewer and fewer Bitcoin in exchanges. That means that people are taking their Bitcoin out of exchanges, which is that's supposed to happen. I mean, like I have my Bitcoin in Celsius that's earning interest for me, but when that really only says that Bitcoin not being on exchanges means that supply on exchanges is going to go down. And when supply goes down and demand goes up, what happens in exchange reserves? Think around exchange reserves at around, and there's only 21 million Bitcoin. Not saying that like about 3 billion of that Bitcoin is lost. So this many, about 2.3 million being on reserves, and most people taking it out, that's good to know that Bitcoin is the future, right? Because if you hold like one Bitcoin, there's a lot of people saying that if you own one Bitcoin in the future, 10, 20 years, you're gonna have that Bitcoin is gonna be worth $1 million. So just want to say that this is good news that Bitcoin is being taken out of exchanges, because that means that people are diamond handsing them, and that means that supply goes down, demand goes up. Only place that price can go is up. Let's take a look at something else. Surge in energy prices suggests high probability of recession. Here are all the points where we ended up in recession, which I will talk through with the Fed raising rates today. So 1970, 1975, 1980, 1990, we have the dot-com bubble over here in 2020, 2008, 2009 financial crisis. Those are times when there was a surge in energy prices. We now see a surge in energy price now due to what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. So I don't know. Does this look like, I don't know, the high probability of recession? Because what I want to combine this with is what was released today, right? Federal Reserve raises rates by 0.25%. And, when they raise rates, what they're expecting is that it will send financing costs in forms of borrowing credit higher. That means that people will borrow less, and this rate increase will come with slower economic growth. And they're not planning to stop here, right? They're planning to end this. At the end of the year, it's going to be 2%. So that's where we're going with this. So will that lead us to a recession? Does this graph hold? Is that the conspiracy theory? Is this a foresight, a hint for us to say that, yeah, we're heading into a recession? So one other thing, we're at like 17 minutes, wow. But this was something that was taken last night as I was watching our replays at IM Academy. It's kind of a conspiracy theory. Though we were adding up the dates of when World War I happened. And if you add up the date, it ends up at 68. World War II happens, you add up the dates, it ends up at 68. And the invasion of Ukraine, you add up the date, and it ends up at 68. So we're saying Cobain was saying that all right, are we expecting the invasion of Ukraine to be the catalyst for World War III? So that I found that kind of funny, since I am big on conspiracy theories, but that's just something I want to leave you with. But anyways, the dollar is strong after the rates, the rate raises. Guys, I was born Asian. English is not my first language, so sometimes I can't speak English properly. So I really hope you understand what I'm saying throughout this whole entire live that we're doing here. So what we're looking at here is the DXY. Yeah, appreciate you, Derek and Hee-Ha. Let's see what we're looking at. So if you don't know what the dollar index is, it's basically a measure of the value of the US dollar relative to the value of a basket of currencies. So it's pretty much taking the US dollar, comparing that against the major currencies, which is the euro, Swiss franc, the yen, Canadian dollars, British pound, and Swedish krona. That's really interesting. I never knew Sweden was that strong. But anyways, all you really got to know here, it takes some time to really understand the DXY. But basically, when it's above all right, let's take a look at Investopedia. So when it's sitting at 120, that means that US dollar has appreciated 20% versus the basket of currencies. If it's at 80, that means it falls 20 from its initial value. So 100 is even, right? So what we're looking at is that the US dollar is getting on even. It's getting stronger, which is good, right? Because if you're living in the US, this is what you care about. But for everybody else, it's not that great of a news for them. Bitcoin usually goes in the opposite direction, but I guess with all the news coming, people are getting hyped up, because what makes sense is that if the US dollar is getting stronger, people are, converting their money into US dollar, right? Because they like the US, the dollar is getting stronger. But when the US dollar is getting weaker, the majority is running away from the US dollar. They're looking for hedges. They're looking for gold. They're looking for real estate. They're looking for Bitcoin. That's supposedly how it works, right? That's what you call buy high and sell low, which is not what you're supposed to do, because what you're supposed to do is buy low, sell high. So I just wanted to end it with the fact that, the US dollar is getting stronger, but that does not take away from my hypothesis that crypto is the future. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to go through with you guys. Make sure that, you look into the Pocket Network. It's something I got to do over the weekend, because didn't know that JPMorgan owned Metamask, and I don't like centralized players having leverage over me. So I'm going to be looking at the Pocket Network. Not sure if I'm going to do a video for that, because like I said, I am owned and employed by the YouTube algorithm. So if it's not a popular term, search term, then sucks. But you're on this live, you know what to do. BTC, ETH, not going to be buying right now because prices are rising. I don't buy, I don't chase price. Gonna be looking for a drawback. Probably think a drawback is gonna happen. So make sure, one last thing, I'm kind of jumping back and forth between topics. Let me know if you guys enjoy these kind of stuff. By not taking advantage of this yesterday, I'm actually skipping work to do videos for you guys right now. That's how much I love you guys, but looks rare. Yeah, it just flew off the handle. Hopefully it'll come back to par on $1, but keep an eye on this. You know, we know how big NFTs are and how big NFTs are becoming. All the influencers are jumping on board. So if OpenSea is the biggest, NFT marketplace right now. If Looks Rare can get a cut of that and they're the new player, then you're getting in early. And I don't see this thing at the price that it's at right now. But, don't chase price. Anyways, guys, remember to smash that like and subscribe button. Remember to continue working, continue building, and continue inspiring. See you next time.